Presumably, ChatGPT is writing the updated note right now, and it'll send it to Smart Connect, and Smart Connect will update it right in Obsidian. But, so we're still starting action. When you see that, if you're writing a note, you can imagine it's, just writing the thing. And this is what we got. There we go. Hey, so OpenAI just released a new version of their ChatGPT app that apparently works with desktop applications. I just started clicking around and it looks like we've got the terminal. I guess let's not turn that one on just yet. But there's also TextEdit. I mean, I don't know how they're doing it, but I can imagine, this would expand to something like Obsidian here. Let's find out, where it's at. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open my home note in the TextEdit, and Obsidian will update immediately. I mean, not that it matters if you're in TextEdit, you're probably just, reading there and writing. But yeah, so open with, interesting, I guess TextEdit doesn't work with Markdown files by default. It went to cursor. Maybe I set that up. But okay, we have this home note. Let's start playing around with ChatGPT. I guess first let's check out if it works with voice mode. Hey, so I am creating a home note for my Obsidian vault named Island Life, which is like a household Obsidian vault, and I want to use it more. So help me create a home note that sort of lays out how we can use Obsidian to better manage our home.
Conceptual framework for home note. Island Life Obsidian Vault. Purpose. Central hub for household management, coordination, and planning. Sections and structure. 1. Dashboard. Quick links to key areas. Chores, groceries, calendar. Daily, weekly overview with tasks and reminders. Rotating chore schedule. Assignments per family member. Checklists for completion tracking. 3. Groceries. Running list of items needed.
Hey,
Category.
can you add this to the home.md file that I have opened in TextEdit?
Certainly. Here's how you can structure your home.md file in Obsidian for your Island Life Vault. Dashboard. Bolded quick links to key areas. Chores, groceries, calendar. Daily, weekly overview with tasks and reminders. 4. Calendar. A shared list for easy access.
Add it
5
directly to the file.
To add this to your home.md file in TextEdit. 1. Open your home.md file in TextEdit. 2.
Okay.
Copy the markdown text provided above.
What is that noise? Let's pause. Hey, so hopefully the ChatGPT voice came through in the video, but clearly that didn't work. I presume that similar to GPT's, the advanced voice mode is pretty limited at this point, so I guess we'll just try it the old-fashioned way. Okay, working with TextEdit. Let's see if we can get those. Okay, so let's just copy that. That is the text from speaking to ChatGPT. I want to start a new conversation. Okay. And working with TextEdit, like this is definitely TextEdit. Like it looks like it's doing a good job, designing the note. It's really extensive. But like, what is this working with TextEdit thing? Like, add to the open file in TextEdit, please. Yeah, that's like kind of crazy. Paired, TextEdit paired. Maybe we try something. Maybe we try something else, I guess. Get my. Whoops. Get my content from the open text edit file. Okay, so that worked. So like update the file. Huh. I guess it just like doesn't work to write stuff. Just read stuff. Damn. Well, I was really hoping we could get some interaction, like, because like I could copy and paste this, but then you run into the formatting issues. So like, I would typically go about this, like if I didn't have something like Smart Connect connecting directly to my desktop and allowing ChatGPT to create the file directly. Like if I wasn't using something like that, I'd tell it to output this in a code block, but like I don't really see why. Man, I really had high hopes for this because that like two-way interaction, reading and writing, that would be really cool. Like, what about in the terminal? Like, okay, let's just test out this terminal with something. Uh, you know, okay, like, does everything look good? Like, it looks like paired. What does it say here? So I guess, damn, I was, reading some tweets and I saw that maybe it seemed like this new feature could read and write. I guess I don't have these other things installed, but it's too bad. Like what's going on? Like are we just screenshotting the application, based on the permissions. I mean, talking about how it works, like I develop desktop software, and there's ways where you can like give permissions for software to look at a certain window, like including like screen recording the window. If you've used Loom, or other screen recorders, you can like even Chrome, like if you're sharing in a meeting, you can be like, hey, share this window only. So like I guess my thought is that that's what it's doing. It's like just looking at the window and taking a screenshot, you know, because like it becomes exceedingly difficult if you were like trying to actually just like pull the text directly from the application somehow, like without that intermediate, like you can view this window, but accessing the content there becomes like a next level difficulty thing. So my guess is they're not, directly accessing the content. Instead, they're like screenshotting the window. This says, like unfortunately, it's like the highlighted text here in the example shows lines 25 to 33, which is all visible. With the exception of maybe 33, but it's like, from this screenshot, I can't really see whether or not, like it's actually using that last line there. Includes up to the last 200 lines. Yeah. I mean, this like focuses on your selection thing. And then I guess this is like the admission here. It's like there's got to be a prompt that's like, if there's some highlighted text, that's the primary text. Oh, okay. So I guess they explained they're using the accessibility API to query content. Yeah, so a little disappointed here. Um, okay. I mean, just for comparison's sake, let's do like a quick Smart Connect test. Okay, so, I still have that note. Let's like let's make sure we save that. What did we lose? Okay, good. It's still in the clipboard. Okay. Okay, so if you're new to Smart Connect, here's a little setup guide. You have to enter your email and connection key, or else you have to set up your own, tunnel service. That's like, for a general audience, that's like a super advanced type of thing. Like if you haven't run a server before, you're not going to set one up on your own. There are some like hacks where you can like use. I was hoping this user of Smart Connect would share how they did it, but somebody mentioned they did it with Cloudflare. There was like maybe some sort of service in Cloudflare that acts as a tunnel, so they were able to configure that to work with Smart Connect. So you can download the Smart Connect software for free and just make it work with your desktop without supporting the project or anything like that. Okay, so I just signed in. We have to create a new smart environment. We're going to call this Island Life. The folder is going to point at the same folder as the Obsidian Vault. And I named the, so you see Island Life, this name is the same as the name of the vault, Island Life. And the reason for that is it's currently required for, what you can consider like a deep integration with Obsidian. The Obsidian integration is actually something that, like, I think can be improved a lot in the software. So, we'll turn that on. It's an Obsidian Vault. There's some things I want to try with the Obsidian integration, but it's, so far, even as experienced as I am with the Obsidian plugins, it was like kind of hard for me to figure out if, some certain Obsidian, features are available for me to improve that integration. But, what we're looking at here is Obsidian. My Obsidian Vault is now configured in Smart Connect. You can see we got these entities embedded. We're embedding blocks. Now, what we got to do is we got to go to the Notes to Experimental GPT. Let's stop working with the terminal, and we can say, read my open notes. And this is where the Obsidian integration comes in. So, what we're doing here is okay, what do we got? So we got an error, get current notes. There's a possibility that's because we just connected the things. So I just take Control R in Smart Connect to refresh. Let's see if it works this second time here. Not connected. Okay, so this is what's happening. We need to have smart connections over here. Number one, we should update it. So check for updates, update smart connections. Okay, I think we should be good to go because Smart Connect and Smart Connections actually share the same configuration for the most part. There's a few things that are Obsidian specific and a few things that are Smart Connect specific, but anything that configures your smart environment should be shared by both pieces of software. Okay. Let's get back to ChatGPT. Let's retry this again. Read my open notes. Not connected to the HTTP Obsidian server. Why is that? So, doing a little bit of live debugging here. This is like really poor user experience, and I apologize. This is like all very much a work in progress. I appreciate everybody who, still supports the project in spite of this being, sometimes a little tough to work with. Okay, so this time I had Smart Connect running. I refreshed Obsidian. And just to confirm, before we look at another failure, we should see like a HTTP. Okay, so Island Life, that is correct. Okay, so it took a little while, but we've got this app connector initialized. That should be what was missing prior. But good to know. I guess like I'm just always working on this thing and refreshing things. So I guess like I never really noticed how like unlikely that is to just work on the first try. Now I'm a little more confused because it's saying no open notes when we do have this open home note. Okay, like maybe let's just like try again. What? Let's like stop that. Read my open notes. It like really doesn't like it's not even hitting this Smart Connect instance. Like I'm pretty sure that I turned off my other computer, but that would explain it if it's like go into my other computer for some reason. Let's see here. Yeah, it seems pretty off. I guess like it's possible somebody figured out my test key. But let's check this other computer. This computer is like definitely off. Yeah, that's like really frustrating. And now I got to turn this computer off again just to, maybe it won't like load in the background if I don't sign in. Okay. Let's just say like get my notes. I mean, I'm just looking to see if we even okay, like so this time we got a request and a response. Okay. Like there we go. Here's the content. Okay, now let's try this next part. Update the update if only I could spell. Update what? I think it's because I'm not used to typing on this little itty bitty laptop keyboard. Update the note by following the the content in the note as instructions. Okay. Presumably, ChatGPT is writing the updated note right now, and it'll send it to Smart Connect, and Smart Connect will update it right in Obsidian. But, so we're still starting action. When you see that, if you're writing a note, you can imagine it's, just writing the thing. And this is what we got. there we go. So if you're using Smart Connect, you get read and write capabilities. Unfortunately, the ChatGPT app isn't there yet. I was hoping it would be. The reading writing, part of the software is actually like an incredibly challenging piece of code. I'm, you can see the comments on GitHub. I mean, there's a lot of issues with what's currently there, but as you can see, even with the issues, we're still creating notes in Obsidian. We can, I guess I wish these were links, but they're not. Let's like, let's just, stop this here for now. Thanks for watching. That was testing out ChatGPT's new, desktop interactive feature, which I imagine is their response to Anthropic's Use Computer, feature. And, now that we know, ChatGPT is currently limited to just reading, something on the screen from a select number of programs. And, unfortunately, Obsidian's not included, in that list. But if you want to use Obsidian with ChatGPT, you can get Smart connect your Obsidian, ask it to read your notes, ask it to, create a note as we just did here. And yeah, thanks for watching.